This system takes just 20 minutes, but it saves you 10 plus hours of wasted time during the week.
I mean, when you first hear that, it really does sound like an exaggeration.
Yeah, it sounds completely made up, like snake oil, because 20 minutes saving 10 hours. We definitely need to verify that math before we go any further, because that is a massive claim.
Right, it sounds like hyperbole. But when you look at the source material for this deep dive, specifically the Sunday reset ritual, the data is actually incredibly compelling.
Mm.
We aren't looking at some random productivity hack from a blog here.
Right, this is based on actual research.
Exactly. We're looking at a clear pattern identified in a study of over 50 self-made millionaires. And the crazy thing is, the common denominator wasn't their IQ.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't even their specific industry. It was entirely about how they handled, well, what they call the entry.
The entry, like stepping into the week.
Yeah, the transition from the weekend to the work week, that crucial Sunday night pivot.
Which, let's be totally honest, for most of us, and I am definitely raising my hand here, is not a pivot, it's a crash.
Oh, absolutely.
We usually handle that transition with something called the Sunday scaries.
The Sunday scaries.
Yeah.
It's that universal feeling of dread that, it starts creeping in around 4 p.m. on Sunday. You know Monday is coming. You know it's going to be chaotic, and you are just bracing for impact.
I actually have this vivid memory of ruining a perfectly good Sunday barbecue a few years ago. I wasn't even working, but my watch buzzed with a Slack notification. I didn't even read the message, just seeing the icon pop to my balloon.
Yeah, it instantly pulls you out of the moment.
Totally. I mentally checked out of the party and spent the next 4 hours just crouching in this mental bunker waiting for the email bombardment.
And that is exactly what we are trying to solve today. That is defensive living. The premise here is that top CEOs simply don't do that. They don't get the Sunday scaries because they have a system that creates an elite gap.
An elite gap.
Right. While the majority of people are spending Sunday evening dreading the morning, the elite are using a specific ritual to guarantee success before Monday even starts.
Okay, so the core claim is that we can close that gap in just 20 minutes.
Precisely. Listen closely. I want to say this very slowly and deliberately. In the next 20 minutes, you are going to learn the 5 specific habits used by 50-plus self-made millionaires to own their week.
I love that phrasing, own their week, because usually the week completely owns us. So before we get into the 5 habits or solution lists, we really need to talk about the diagnosis. Why is the typical Monday morning such a disaster for people?
Well, the source puts it pretty bluntly. It is not because we are lazy. Laziness has nothing to do with it.
That's a relief to hear, honestly.
The diagnosis is that most people lack a system for entry. Think about a typical Monday morning. You sit down, you open your laptop, and what is the very first thing you do? Be honest.
I check my email or Slack immediately. It's just muscle memory at this point.
Exactly. You react. You are immediately in a defensive posture, responding to other people's priorities, getting completely overwhelmed by the noise. You are ignoring the micro steps needed to actually drive your own progress because you're too busy putting out fires.
It feels like, that scene in a movie where the submarine starts leaking and everyone is just running around frantically turning valves?
Yes.
That is Monday. You're just trying to keep the water out.
That is a perfect sensory description. It's noise, it's pressure, it's panic, and you cannot navigate to a destination when you are sinking. The entire goal of this Sunday planning system is to flip that dynamic. We want to turn that reactive behavior into proactive execution.
Right, we want the submarine running silent and deep, right on course.
Exactly. So let's stop leaking and start navigating. The source organizes these 5 habits logically, so let's follow that path. We are starting with the first 2, which are all about structure and friction.
Okay, GPS check for the listener. We are starting with structure and friction. Habit number 1 is the goal cascade. Now, this sounds fancy, but in practice, it seems almost too simple.
It is remarkably simple, but almost no one does it correctly. The goal cascade is all about connection. Most people have these big, vague, monthly or yearly goals, like I want to grow sales or I want to get fit. But then Monday comes and they just answer emails.
There's a massive disconnect. The daily work doesn't match the big picture at all.
Precisely. The goal cascade bridges that gap. You take your monthly goal and you break it down into exactly 3 specific wins for this week, not 10 things. 3.
Wait, I have to push back on this rule of 3. That's our first audio sticky note for the listener, the rule of 3. But realistically, I have 20 things I actually need to do next week. If I only write down 3, aren't I just ignoring the rest of my job?
This is exactly the most common point of failure. People confuse tasks with wins. You will obviously still have to answer emails, attend meetings, and do the laundry. Those are maintenance tasks. Wins are the needle movers. They are the high-leverage activities that actually advance your monthly goal.
Okay, that makes sense. So give me an example of a bad goal versus an actual win.
A bad goal for the week is work on the client project. It's vague. It has no finish line. You could spend 10 hours working on it and get absolutely nowhere. A win is finalize the pitch deck for client X and send it by Thursday at noon.
It's binary. You either did it or you didn't.
Exactly. And the reason it's only 3 is because of cognitive load. If you have 20 priorities, you have no priorities. By forcing yourself to identify 3 specific wins, you are creating a filter for your entire week.
So if a random task pops up on Wednesday and it doesn't contribute to one of those 3 wins, you instantly know it's a distraction.
Right. It empowers you to say no, or at least not right now.
So on Sunday, you sit down and say, okay, to hit my monthly target, I need to accomplish X, Y, and Z by Friday. And that is your anchor.
That is the structure. But having a goal isn't enough if you don't carve out the time to do it. Which brings us perfectly to habit number 2.
Habit number 2, calendar blocking. Now, I know what you're going to say. Put it on the calendar. We have all heard this advice a million times. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. But be real. Most of us try this, and then by Tuesday noon, the calendar is just blown to shreds by emergencies.
That happens because most people are doing calendar blocking completely wrong. They are using the amateur approach.
What's the amateur approach?
The amateur treats a calendar block as a suggestion. They see a block that says, write report, but when a colleague walks by and asks for 5 minutes, they say, sure, and the block is just gone. The pro treats that block as a rigid appointment.
There is a fantastic quote in the source from Abraham Lincoln that perfectly encapsulates the philosophy here. He said, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe.
It is one of the best productivity metaphors out there. Think about it in a sensory way. Chopping a tree with a dull axe is exhausting. You are hacking away, sweating, making very little progress. That is what working without a plan actually feels like.
And the sharpening is this Sunday ritual.
Exactly. Sunday is for sharpening. Monday is for chopping. If you spend 20 minutes on Sunday sharpening your axe, scheduling your work, blocking out the time for those 3 wins we just talked about, then when Monday comes, the chopping is effortless. You don't have to decide what to do. You just execute.
That's the key part, removing the decision-making entirely. The source talks a lot about reducing friction. If I have to wake up on Monday and decide when I'm going to write that report, I'm probably going to procrastinate. But if it's already on the calendar for 9 a.m.,
the decision is already made. You have removed the friction of choice. You are simply following the instructions you gave yourself yesterday. You are trusting your Sunday self to guide your Monday self.
But what about the blown to shreds factor? What does the elite performer actually do when the boss calls during a focused work block?
They use the Tetris method. If a block absolutely must be moved because of a true emergency, you don't delete it. You move it. You slide it to Thursday afternoon. You respect the block enough to find it a new home rather than just letting it vanish into the ether.
Okay, I really like that. It's about respecting the appointment with yourself as much as you respect an appointment with a very important client.
Exactly. So we have our structure with the 3 wins, and we have reduced friction with calendar blocking. That is the forward-looking part of the system.
Okay, GPS check. We have looked forward at the schedule, but the system says before we can really move forward, we have to look back. We need to clear the deck. This brings us to habits 3 and 4, which are about optimization and clearing.
This is the exact step most people skip because it is uncomfortable. They just pile new work on top of an old mess. But you have to clean up first.
So habit 3 is the audit checklist. This isn't a complex financial audit. It's just 2 very specific questions you ask yourself about the previous week.
Right. Question 1. What distracted me last week?
Ooh, that is a painful question. It forces you to admit that maybe you are the problem.
It has to be painful to be effective. If you don't identify the kryptonite, you can't avoid it. Maybe it was a specific person who keeps dropping by your desk to gossip. Maybe it was checking social media before noon. You have to name it to tame it.
And the second question,
what meeting can I cancel?
Okay, let's stop right here because this is the advice that always scares people. Listeners are thinking, if I just start deleting meetings from my calendar, I'm going to get fired. How does a normal person actually pull this off without looking like a total jerk?
You don't just ghost the meeting. That is a fast track to unemployment.
Yeah.
You use the audit to assess value. The source suggests a few tactical ways to handle this. First, look for the zombie meetings.
Zombie meetings, I love that term.
They are the recurring meetings that have been on the calendar for 3 years, but nobody really remembers why. They're dead, but they keep walking. For those, you reach out to the organizer and ask, is there a specific agenda for this week? I am heads down on Project X.
Ugh, the agenda rule. If there's no agenda, I don't attend.
Exactly. Or you ask for a summary email instead. Or you delegate it to someone on your team who actually needs to learn that information. The point is, we often accept recurring meetings as a law of nature. The Fun-Day planning system demands you look at your calendar with a critical eye. If a meeting doesn't move the needle on your 3 wins, it is a target for elimination.
It's about being ruthless with your time so you can be generous with your energy.
Beautifully put, you are removing inefficiency before you start the new work.
So we have audited the schedule, but what about the clutter in our heads? That brings us to habit 4, the brain dump.
This is my personal favorite because it deals directly with mental RAM.
Paint that computer metaphor for us.
Think about your computer.
Sure.
When you have 50 tabs open in your browser and 5 heavy applications running in the background, what happens?
The fan starts spinning really loud, the cursor starts lagging, and eventually you just get the spinning wheel of death.
Exactly. Your brain works the exact same way. Every unfinished task, every unreturned phone call, every vague idea you have floating around, psychologists actually call these open loops. They're applications running in the background of your mind, using up your mental RAM.
And when your RAM is full, you can't think clearly, you feel foggy, you try to write an important email, but you are completely distracted by the thought that you need to buy cat food.
You feel overwhelmed. And here is the science behind it. The Zeigarnik effect states that your brain remembers unfinished tasks better than finished ones. Your brain is essentially designed to nag you about open loops.
So how do we finally close the loops?
Habit 4 is the brain dump. You take a blank sheet of paper, and it really needs to be physical paper, preferably, and you write down every single open loop currently in your head. Everything from finish the Q3 report to buy milk to call mom.
It sounds chaotic.
It is. Initially, it looks like a complete mess. But the moment you write it down, you are saving it to the hard drive. You are taking it out of the RAM. You are telling your brain, it is safe to forget this for now because I have captured it.
I have actually done this, and there is a physical sensation of relief. It is literally like taking off a heavy backpack.
That is the RAM clearing. So now, look at where we are. We have established our 3 wins, we have blocked the time to do them, we have canceled the useless meetings, and we have cleared our mental RAM.
We are pretty much ready to dominate. But there is one more habit. The source calls this the authority anchor.
This is the secret weapon. Habit 5.
GPS navigation update for everyone listening. We have the plan, and we have a clear mind. Now for the leverage used by the biggest names in business.
We're talking about Bill Gates, Barack Obama, Warren Buffett. When you look at their weekend habits, one thing stands out consistently across the board.
They read.
They read. Strategic reading. But they don't just read for entertainment, though that is fine. They view reading as leverage.
I feel like a lot of people will hear strategic reading and think, I am tired, it is Sunday, I just want to watch Netflix and zone out for a bit.
And that is completely valid. You definitely need rest. But the concept here is knowledge compound interest. We all understand financial compound interest. You invest $1, it earns interest, the interest earns interest, and over 30 years, you're rich. Knowledge works the exact same way.
So if you spend just 30 minutes of your Sunday reading a book about your industry or leadership or a new technology,
You are depositing knowledge into your account. And next week, you will use that knowledge to make a slightly better decision. And that decision leads to a better result. Over time, that knowledge compounds into wisdom and expertise that makes you practically untouchable in your field.
it's the difference between working in your life and working on your life. It's stepping out of the trenches for a minute to look at the whole battlefield.
Exactly. The Sunday Reset isn't just about organizing tasks. It's about actively investing in your own operating system.
Okay, let's take a breath. We have covered a massive amount of ground here. We unpack the elite gap, diagnose the problem with entry, and walk through all 5 habits. But information without implementation is just trivia.
And we don't want you to just be smarter. We want you to be more effective. This is the point where we need to tie it all together. If you're listening to this while driving or at the gym, try to visualize these 5 steps in order.
Let's do a rapid-fire recap so this actually sticks. Habit number 1.
The goal cascade. Don't just list tasks. Define your 3 wins for the week. If it's not a win, it's a distraction.
Habit number 2.
Calendar blocking. Sharpen the axe. Schedule the work right now to remove the friction of deciding later. Treat those blocks like appointments with the CEO.
Habit number 3.
The audit checklist. Look back. Ask what distracted me. And what meeting can I cancel? Be ruthless.
Habit number 4.
The brain dump. Clear your mental RAM. Write down every open loop, big or small, so you can actually think clearly.
And habit number 5.
Strategic reading. Invest in knowledge compound interest. Even just 30 minutes adds up.
Now, usually this is the part where we sign off and fade out, but we aren't doing that today because the source material issues a very specific challenge, and we are going to issue it to you right now.
Here's the challenge. Do not just nod your head and say, well, that sounds nice.
Block out 20 minutes this coming Sunday at 7 p.m. Put it in your phone right now. Set an alarm. Label it Sunday planning session.
When that alarm goes off, execute these 5 habits. It will feel awkward the first time. You might struggle to find your 3 wins. Your brain dump might be messy. That is perfectly okay.
Just do it. Spend the 20 minutes. Because here's the final thought I want to leave you with, and this really hit me when I read the source. We often look at these elite performers, the Elon Musks, the Oprahs, and we assume the difference between them and us is capacity. We think they must be working 80-hour weeks and never sleeping.
But that is rarely the case. We all have the exact same 168 hours in a week.
Right. The difference isn't the hours worked. The difference is the 20 minutes spent planning the entry.
That is the ultimate leverage point, a small hinge that swings a massive door.
So take the 20 minutes, own your Sunday, and see what happens on Monday.
You've made it this far, so why stop now? There are 2 videos on your screen right now that are perfect for you. Just pick the one that looks most interesting and let's dive back in.